Hey everybody, Dirili here. So good to see you for my 22nd audio log. Well, the current status of the voting for the next translation title is we have had 11 voters so far, and the leading titles are number 1, To Continue Reign de Fleur, which has 13 points, the Amnesia sequel, which has 9 points, Norn 9, which has 7 points, and the Code Realized fan disc, which is at 6 points. And we still don't know when that's coming out though. The voting is still open until June 26th, so you still have plenty of time to join Patreon and vote if you'd like. Details are in my last audio log about voting, which I will link in the cards and in the description below. Remember, even a small contribution as $1 a month earns you a vote, so it's not very much. Also, Momoko has begun her summer class, so far she hasn't had any trouble keeping up with translations, but as she falls behind, people voted 2 to 3 for Arcana Famiglia, or Familia. I've looked it up in several different places, and it's pronounced both ways on different places. So I don't know which one I want to call it. What do you guys think, Famiglia or Familia? Though it's spelled Famiglia. I mean, it's Italian, but I don't know anything about Italian, so... Well, anyway, if Momoko falls behind and we don't have any Reign de Fleur episodes for certain days, I'll use translations for Arcana Famiglia, as long as I can follow it. I checked it out, and it looks a little difficult in the beginning, so I'm not sure how well I'll be able to match the translations up. But I'm sure I can figure it out at some point somehow. Oh, and something else that can be either good or bad is that I've been recording Gisela's route, and I noticed there's a few more scenes shared with Leon's route than I thought there would be, so there may not be as many episodes in each guy's route as I initially thought. So, since Reign de Fleur is currently winning the vote, it may not be terribly long till there's another vote for another series, which would be pretty cool. And usually I like to talk all the business first, but my other order of business is kind of long-winded and very detailed, so I'm just going to chat a bit here before I get into that. I'm all alone now! Although not as alone as I thought I was going to be, so that's cool. One of my brothers-in-law didn't go. I totally didn't realize he wasn't going, so he's around if I need him. Oh, and oh man, I totally did not anticipate this one factor though, which I should have. I record at night, so there isn't so much of an issue with noise from like the sounds of traffic or people passing by outside. And my dog usually sleeps in my mother's room at night, and then comes down to my room in the morning when my mom leaves for work. She's a really social and cuddly dog, so she has to be by somebody all the time. But since my mother isn't here, she comes down to my room at night while I'm recording, so I have to worry about her making noises in the background while I'm recording sometimes. Not a big deal though, I mean, I just have to make her stop scratching or licking herself, but it makes me feel kind of bad. So I've got to work on this video today, and, well, hopefully this will be out today. I think it should be. No reason why not. And a few Reign de Fleur things. And hopefully Monday, I should have plenty of time to relax. Maybe take off Tuesday or something. I don't know. Especially since I've been extremely distressed the last few days. It wouldn't be right for me to talk directly about what's happening, so I can't get into it. But, I kind of feel like I've been betrayed on 2 fronts at the same time. And that's never a good feeling, and it's really hard to get over. Why do multiple bad things always have to happen at the same time? It's so much easier when my family's around to talk to, but I don't want to bother them on their vacation. But of course they do agree that I have the right to feel the way I do. And believe me, my sister doesn't pull punches. If she doesn't believe I'm right, she would tell me. But my family's with me. They're like, what? I can't believe this. This is ridiculous. So, yeah, I'm dealing with something on that level. And, I don't have my family support right now, and I can't talk about it. So I guess that's really all I can say right now about that part of my misery. With my social anxiety, it's particularly hard to deal with people when you can't seem to get the point across to them. And you just keep going back and forth, you know? But the other thing that's been really hitting me hard and depressing me is the fact that I've lost half of my audience for Destiny's Princess. I think 2 episodes a week just wasn't enough. I didn't really like spreading myself that thin anyway, so I think it's better to stick to 2 regular titles instead of 3 that get spread out so much. So I'm going to ask for more input from my patrons on this matter, but this development with Destiny's Princess put me in the mindset for pursuing another alternative that I've been thinking about for a while. This is my next order of business that I was talking about that's going to be long-winded and very detailed. This is going to be something extremely difficult to establish because it requires finding just the right individual or individuals. It could be months before I find the right person or people, if I ever find them at all. I'd like to have a sister channel or 2 to read some of the titles that I'm not going to, because there are just too many of them now. But the thing is, I'm looking for professionals or naturals for very specific reasons. Most people listening to this probably know that my two biggest missions for this channel are to provide audiobooks for people to listen to while doing things that don't allow them to read the screen. Because a lot of us are very busy, and although we'd like to read things, we just don't have the time. So things like this help to expose people to titles that they normally wouldn't have time to investigate. And secondly, but just as important, is to promote otome games and try to make them more famous amongst English-speaking audiences so that we'll get more of the high-quality ones translated to English. With my sister channels, I'd like to plan out splitting up titles, and I would promote them regularly to direct people to the titles that I'm not reading. And I may buy some of the titles for them to play. I know I'm not the biggest channel right now, but I'm working on it, and I believe I can help somebody build their channel up pretty well in the beginning. And I also believe very firmly if I had some partners, we could grow even faster together. So, because I'm trying to give the best advertising possible for otome games, I have very high standards for the prerequisites here, and I'll make a video later showing the steps that I go through when I make my videos to give you an idea of the process. But here are my prerequisites. Number 1, it has to be somebody who's very serious about doing this. You need to be able to do something similar to me with releasing 2 videos a day, either 5 days a week or 7 days a week. It's also important to play the new games on their release dates. We don't get very many in the otome game industry usually anyway. We just had a little streak of new games just now. But yeah, you may have to break off one title temporarily to pick up a new one for a while. So point 2, for the above reason, preferably an adult who is not taking classes. Work can be pretty hard to get around, but working people are more likely to be stable than students are. Or if you're someone supported by your significant other maybe, and get to stay home, that can be pretty good. Number 3, and most important, and I have a lot of details on this point, you have to have a good voice and to be a good voice actor or actress. Because we're trying to advertise the games and make them look good, and represent them in the best way possible. Flat, unemotional readings make the story sound boring to newcomers that don't know what they're getting themselves into, and those are the ones in particular that we're trying to hook. If someone's first contact with an otome game is hearing someone stumble over their readings and drone or croak on, it isn't going to draw them in and could even turn them off to the genre completely by giving them a bad first impression. Like I said before, I'm no paragon of voice acting, but hopefully I can find some people to work with that are better than me. To be able to read the lines and sound natural, like you're in the moment, have the feelings that the character is feeling, and be upbeat and have some energy, that's important. There's a perfect middle ground though. Too energetic and you'll annoy people and drive them away. It's best if you can do different voices because people who can't look at the screen will sometimes have a difficult time keeping track of the story if they don't know who's supposed to be speaking, and they would have to keep looking up at the screen fast enough to check if you're not doing different voices. And again, with staying appealing and being good advertising, one needs to avoid annoying or offensive voices. Hopefully someone can choose voices that will suit the characters. You know, don't do things like make this pretty boy into some country bumpkin voice or something like that. And you don't have to be able to read every line perfectly the first time either. Voice acting is like any other kind of acting. You do several takes of it if it doesn't sound right the first time, and select your right version. That's why my videos take so long to make, because I don't just read and upload it however it happens to come out. I take the time to try to make the lines sound right. There's a few other considerations in voice quality that you need to be aware of that many beginners don't realize. But once you notice them, you can't not notice anymore. And that applies for listeners too, which is why these are important, because people who have been listening to things a significant amount of time start noticing these things and they start bothering them. My first few months of videos were terrible, and I can't go back and watch my old videos because I know about these things now. But I was also still getting used to being comfortable voice acting, so my voice acting was really not very good in the first place. I was kind of flat. It's funny because it's like 7 months later and somebody wrote in one of my old videos, "You sound like a robot," and I'm thinking, did you watch any of my new videos? Because that was a long time ago for me. Alright, so some of these things that you need to watch are, number 1, avoid using a headphone mic or sitting too close to your microphone, both of which can cause either popping sounds when your breath hits the microphone, which is extremely annoying, or equally annoying, lots of squishy, crackly, or clicky mouth sounds that show up from your tongue moving around your mouth or your cheeks and lips moving against your teeth. And of course, obviously, you don't want to leave in sounds like when you sniffle and sneeze and cough and stuff. Unfortunately, as far as I've found, there are no guides that teach techniques on how to reduce mouth noises. It's something that you have to figure out by yourself with experimentation. Even if you aren't close to your mic, you may have some of those mouth noises show up, so you have to figure out some oratory techniques to get rid of them. I definitely had to. I still have problems with them though. You'll hear this in even this recording here that I have some of these problems still. But I'm doing a lot better than I was, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get even better. It's even worse when you're stressed out though. I'm still stressed out right now, so I'm being kind of clicky today. And number 4, you need to know or be able to learn how to use audio cleaning software and video editing software. You're usually going to end up with room static noise, so it's best to record your speaking audio separately from your game audio so that you can clean up the audio file. I can help with that if you need, because that's pretty easy to tell someone how to do. And you can use Audacity for that, which is free and pretty easy to use. But the editing software, I'm not so sure I can help so much with. I personally use Magic's Movie Edit Pro 2015, and all editors will be different, and I don't know what your price range is. I mean, I think I paid $60 for mine, so I don't know what your price range will be. Really, I guess I should have made that a point too. You need some decent equipment to do these recordings. I'll have to make another post about this at some point about all these factors and break it down even more detailed, but you need a decent microphone. Your computer needs to have a certain level of specs in your computer to be able to run the software that you need and play the games. But as far as just playing Steam games, you just need to be able to run Steam, and visual novels don't really take up that much processor speed. But anyway, the editing software is obviously to edit out the unacceptable line takes, or times when you stop to clear your throat, or take a drink of water and such. You'll also find sometimes you need to cut out awkward pauses. And of course, there will also be times when you need to take a minute to figure out how to pronounce a word correctly. Because most of the time, it's actually not funny when you're sitting there trying to pronounce the word on the video. I mean, very rarely people like Markiplier or something can make that funny. But most of the time, it's annoying and sometimes even offensive when you're mispronouncing something in another language. Personally, on average, I'll record about 40 minutes worth of footage, and after editing, it's down to 30. So that's how much time I put into rereading the lines to try to make them sound right. I probably should take even longer, but I only have so much time in a day to keep up the rate that I'm going right now. Alright, number 5, not really a requisite, but it's usually best not to use a face cam since you'll most likely be editing, so there'll be skips in the footage. I think most of the time people just don't care about their audio quality, but sometimes I wonder if they don't edit because of the video skips they would have on their face cam. Usually for readings, a face cam doesn't even add to it at all, and it can even ruin the illusion of the storytelling. And number 6, this one's a personal note. I would really love to have other readers that I can listen to. It's a bit linked to my social anxiety that I'm very sound sensitive. A lot of sounds that people make set off anxiety attacks for me. My psychologist and I theorized that I might even be a touch autistic, which would account for that sound sensitivity. There's currently only 4 readers on YouTube that I can stand to listen to. That's, Let's Read, Creeps McPasta, King Spook, and Ghastly Tales. Sadly, none of those are Otome Game readers. Even with those guys, though, I can't listen to their earlier videos because they figured out, too, that you have to learn how to orate things correctly to avoid making certain noises. So their beginner videos did have those noise problems that bother me. Luckily for me, they did figure it out. And I have searched a lot, too. I've checked out every Otome Game reader out there, dozens of creepypasta readers because I love them, and other miscellaneous readers. Everyone besides the ones I've listed, I couldn't listen to for more than 1 minute. Alright, well, I know that's a lot to ask, and I don't know if I'll find anyone with the talent, ambition, and time, but I pray and hope for it. So feel free to contact me with a video sample of your work if you're interested and think you can do it. But please remember that I'm going to be very, very picky, so please don't be offended if I turn you down. Oh, one last thing is, I'm hoping to find somebody whose natural voice is about mid-tone. It is another personal thing. I really don't like very high-pitched voices. I don't like voices that sound like a little kid. But I prefer to hear motherly-sounding voices myself, or with the men, I like to hear those smooth voices. And if you ever listen to those guys that I listed that I actually listen to, they're awesome. They have great voices. Well, it took me a while to find translators to work with, but I was lucky enough to find those, so maybe I'll get lucky again and find people to work with. If I'm amazingly lucky enough to find someone soon, perhaps I can hand off the rest of Destiny's Princess and Nameless, so I can pick up more titles that need special equipment to record. I could start doing Arcana Familia or Kamigami no Asobi regularly instead. Or there's also something new on the table. There are 2 games that I know of they were originally for PSP, and they were translated to English, but unfortunately, the English version is only for mobile. Because of that, they're vertical, and you can't turn them horizontal. So they don't have the original setup, and they don't have the voices or animations, and I think one of them doesn't even have the music. But I can record the PSP footage and use the translation from the mobile port to make a better video. I can do that immediately with Nisei no Chigiri. I even checked it out to see if I could match up the lines and read it without any trouble, and yep, I'm good for that one. Scarlet Fate, which is one of the Hiro no Kakero games, I'm not so sure about that one because I don't own the PSP version of it yet, because I think it was still very expensive. I guess it's rare now or something. But I'm also a little confused because there's a sequel for it for mobiles, and I'm not sure what that corresponds to PSP-wise. If anybody knows, I'd appreciate the information. Not to mention, there's still Hakuoki and Sweet Fuse I'd love to play someday too. Well, that's a lot of information. I hope it's not terribly confusing. I'll be posting soon to ask patrons more about their preferences on my running series, so keep an eye out for that, probably sometime this week. Well, as usual, thank you so much for joining me again. Hope to see you soon. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.